Alright guys, so Islanders fan in Connecticut here. Got a little message for our former boy John Tavares. Here you go, buddy. Good luck in Toronto.
Johnny boy. When talking about a star breaking up with their team, the John Tavares saga is the perfect example. Drafted first overall in 2009, Tavares was seen as a savior, as a young Johnny T was one of the most dominant prospects in NHL history. 134 points, 72 goals in 67 games, 2 entire years before his draft. Goddamn. And after finally joining the Islanders roster, it was all up from here. Excellent development, a fan favorite, and he would even be named captain heading into his 5th season. Johnny T was their franchise player and was the bloodline of the Islanders franchise as a whole. Except, Tavares was getting frustrated. In 2015, Tavares would put up a career-high 86 points, yet the next highest scorer on the team had 51. And in today's game where your team either needs, bulletproof depth or multiple game changers, this was always a persistent issue, which is also why John Tavares would make the playoffs 3 times in a 9-year span. In 2016, the Islanders would make some great progression, as they'd make it to the second round, but would be dismantled by Tampa. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where shit hit the fan. Around this time, contract talks would start, as Tavares had 2 years left on his deal that ran from 2012 until 2018. Notice the no trade clause, but the team was making great progression, all was good. And to Islanders fans, this is the important part. Tavares would start making statements in how he loves Long Island, and how he is committed to being a lifelong Islander. And ironically, would even mention how him returning to Toronto was a pipe dream. Specifically quoting to a Toronto radio station, "I would not count on that. Obviously being from Toronto, people are gonna make those connections, and it is what it is. There's nothing that I can control. I just want to go out there and be the best player, the best person that I can be for the Islanders day in and day out. I'm just gonna focus on tomorrow and the upcoming season." Flash forward to next season. Instead of building off that second round finish, the Islanders would miss the playoffs altogether. And this is where things intensify. Tavares' no trade clause would kick in, which now gave him extra negotiating power on top of being a pending UFA. But the story stayed the same. Tavares was committed to being an Islander. In the 2016-2017 NHL season, fans started taking note that Tavares would slowly stop using strong verbiage when talking about re-signing. But hey, Matt Barzal would join the team and be an absolute stud on top of winning the Calder. However, somehow, the Islanders would take another step back. And even with Barzal and Tavares going, they would finish with an even worse record, as the Islanders had some depth issues, even though they were scoring more than the past decade. Because at this point, the last time the Islanders had 3 players with over 70 points, well, that was in 1993. And this was the final nail in the coffin. Does Tavares want to remain on a sinking ship, or join the Toronto Maple Leafs, who now have a generational scorer in Matthews, on top of other several studs? And after not re-signing and creating a bunch of drama, Tavares, even though he said he was committed to the team, would shockingly sign a max deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as a result, we would see one of the worst fallouts we have seen in decades. I mean, fans were pissed, burning jerseys, a non-stop onslaught for the Pajama Boy, on top of getting booed every second he was on the ice in his return, including his welcome back tribute video. Brutal. Now, to be fair, Islanders fans can be goddamn toxic, but I can totally understand where they're coming from, as they at least just wanted the respect of Tavares saying he wanted out, so that the Islanders could have at least traded him for something instead of just getting completely burnt, which again makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, Tavares did commit 9 years of his career to the Islanders and did not see any type of sustainable success, and had the chance to make a boatload of money in his hometown in front of his family, so I think most people would probably do the same thing. However, the ironic part is, Toronto has done nothing since Tavares has joined them, as they have now seen 3 straight first round exits. Now, of course, Tavares was involved in that freak accident, but the proof is in the pudding. While at the same time, even though they lost their franchise player for nothing, the Islanders would have the most playoff success since the 90s, if not the 80s. So maybe this was just a blessing in disguise for Islanders fans. But the jersey burning, the booing, this was a high school breakup. Patty Waugh, this dude. For those of you who don't know, Patty Waugh is one of the most entertaining / greatest goalies in the history of hockey. In his first season as a rookie, Patrick Waugh would walk in and lead the Montreal Canadiens to a Stanley Cup, on top of taking home playoff MVP as a rookie. And considering that my man was also a French Canadian, well, it was a match made in heaven. And throughout his 11 years in Montreal, Waugh would keep the status quo, as he would even take home 9 player awards within that 11 years, including 3 Vezina trophies. To put it simply, Patrick Waugh was the shit. And in 1993, Patrick Waugh would do it again, as he would take home another Stanley Cup, on top of taking home his second playoff MVP trophy. So, flash forward to 1995. Patrick Waugh, after having a losing record the season before, had a mediocre start to the season. And this is where things started to crack. Waugh would begin talking to other players about his frustrations with the team, specifically the abuse he receives from his fan base. If I play good, everybody is behind me, but if I play bad, I'll hear it from every single fan. Imagine winning 9 awards, carrying your team to 2 Stanley Cups within a 9-year span, on top of taking home playoff MVP in those 2 cup runs, proving that you were pivotal to the cup, just to have one bad stretch and be told by every fan that you are useless. And also, I do want to make it clear, I am not just picking on Montreal, as this is a very toxic trend across all sports. So, in 1995, Patrick Waugh was starting to have real doubts about his time in Montreal. On December 2nd, 1995, Patrick Waugh would go to a breakfast bar across the street. And in a packed restaurant, he also noticed Mike Vernon, goaltender of the Detroit Red Wings, come in. He invited him to his table. And well, he discussed how he couldn't take it anymore and that he may need a change of scenery. And this was also amplified because this season, Montreal would fire their GM and coach, and they would be replaced by a rookie coach and a rookie GM who had never ran the ship before. And well, later that night, it would happen.
For Johnson, back to Lidstrom, he's close enough for the try, score! They have beat Patrick Waugh! He's in! He's in! Yes, score!
Patrick Waugh would get absolutely burned in net. And I mean burned, as he would let in 9 goals. Usually in the NHL, when a goalie lets in more than 4 unanswered goals, the coach would make a change and pull the goalie. Except, not only did he not make a change, but when Patrick Waugh looked towards the bench to get pulled, he was ignored. But he was ignored by a rookie coach who had no respect to the man who brought so much success to the team. Which was only amplified when you consider the fact that Patrick Waugh was already considered one of the greatest to ever play and was ignored by a rookie coach. And what was the final missing piece? Patrick Waugh would get booed out of the building by his own fans, as he would be mocked and booed the entire game on home ice. And after the 9th goal, he would finally be pulled. And in that moment, well, Patrick Waugh made up his mind, as he would walk straight off the ice in his equipment, go up to management and tell them that this was the last game he'd be playing in a Montreal uniform. And you know how the phrase worst trade in NHL history sometimes gets tossed around on this channel? Well, after the stint, Patrick Waugh would be instantly shipped off in what just might be the worst trade in NHL history. As Patrick Waugh, one of the all-time greats, was traded for a fringe goaltender, a second-line forward, and a bottom 6 forward. And what is wild, the cherry on top, Patrick Waugh would join the Avs and win a Stanley Cup in his first season, and also the same season that he was traded, further reinforcing his greatness, especially after one of the most absurd breakups in NHL history. And it didn't stop there. Patrick Waugh would take home another cup on top of his 3rd Conn Smythe trophy years later. But man, this event honestly set a precedent on why you must respect the hand that feeds you, especially when it feeds you multiple Stanley Cups and has the ability to feed another team multiple Stanley Cups. Martin St. Louis. When it comes to being discriminated against, if not just straight up disrespected, look no farther than Martin St. Louis. Like, when Martin St. Louis was draft eligible, he put up 49 points in 32 NCAA games, except would go undrafted because of his size. This upcoming draft, Matthew Beniers is considered a potential 1st overall pick, and was just at a point per game in the NCAA. And honestly, I will cover Martin St. Louis' story in more detail in the future, but just know he had to claw and scratch his way to the NHL, even though he was an unbelievable talent. And well, after literally being given away by the Calgary Flames, Martin St. Louis would see an incredible rise in Tampa. In 2004, St. Louis would win the league MVP award, on top of an Art Ross, a Hart Trophy, and a Stanley Cup. Ironically, against the Flames, who gave him up for nothing. And during his time in Tampa, St. Louis was a superstar. The man was standing in at 5'8" and was a top 5 player. And keep in mind, this was a time period where small players couldn't exist. A nice 102-point season there, and oh, the arrival of Steven Stamkos, which was the perfect match. However, let's look at the 2008-2009 season, because this is where it all began. Tampa this season was dog awful, as they had huge roster issues after coming down from the Cup win in 2004. And we're at the very bottom of the league once again, except St. Louis was still a stud even with a war-torn roster. After the season ended, St. Louis would join Team Canada overseas and lead the tournament with an extremely impressive 15 points in 9 games. Again, St. Louis was a previous league MVP, Art Ross winner, Hart Trophy winner, international star. And with this context, we'll go straight into the big drama. The next season, it was now time to start assembling Team Canada for the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. So, it was a no-brainer that St. Louis would at least get an invite. Except, he wouldn't even be considered enough to be invited to try out. He wasn't even cut, he didn't even get a consideration for the team, even though that he was now in the Team Canada record books from the World Championships. On top of the fact that Stevie Y was the goddamn general manager, but okay, let's calm down. Around this time, it would come out that Martin St. Louis would ask for a trade. Now, I do want to emphasize, I do want to say that he specifically said it was because he wanted to be closer with his family, which I 100% believe in, as he also had a house outside of New York, but whatever. Flash forward a couple years. Martin St. Louis is once again on the top of the league, as him and Stamkos were basically 90% of all highlights from this era. In 2013, St. Louis would win another Art Ross trophy, proving at the age of 37, he was still a top 5 forward in the league. Except, and I kid you not, Martin St. Louis would be once again snubbed from Team Canada again. Even though he just led the entire league in scoring, he wouldn't even be considered. On top of the fact that Stevie Y was his own GM, and he would make this decision again. And this time, the trade request went far more aggressive in public. Again, Martin St. Louis 100% root for family purposes. I really do not want to get that misconstrued. But there can also be multiple reasons, and the timing could not have been more obvious. Because right after the snub, Martin St. Louis, the captain of Tampa, would be shockingly traded to New York for their captain in Ryan Callahan. And fun fact, Stevie Y would actually trade most of these picks, so don't look at who they actually drafted. But they would end up acquiring a 2015 third round pick from these assets, and they used it to draft Anthony Cirelli. You know, just a Selkie dark horse, and a major piece to their core and depth. I honestly think that Steve Yzerman is just playing 4D chess while everyone else just blows up their teams. And the final cherry on top, Stamkos would not be able to play. So, St. Louis would replace him anyways and get his gold medal. Awesome. But this was just a weird breakup stemmed from constant disrespect that St. Louis had his entire career. The man was just way ahead of his time in terms of being able to play with that size. And there's a large reason why players like Johnny Hockey or Cole Caulfield exist today.